Your entire faith was built on fear, not on love, not on truth, not on genuine spiritual experience, on fear. Fear of hell, fear of judgment, fear of never being good enough, fear of a God who is constantly watching, constantly disappointed, constantly one mistake away from abandoning you forever. Think about how many of your spiritual decisions were actually fear decisions. You attended church because you were afraid not to. You followed the rules because punishment felt inevitable. You prayed because you were terrified of what happened if you stopped. Carl Jung noticed this pattern across thousands of people, and he documented something the church has never once acknowledged from the pulpit. Fear is not faith. Fear is control. So, where did this fear actually come from? How deep does it go? And what does genuine faith actually look like without it? Let me show you.
Church said, fear God. Reverence means terror. A healthy spiritual life begins with understanding how utterly terrifying God's judgment actually is. This was not occasional teaching. This was the foundation. Every sermon, every Sunday school lesson, every warning about hell and judgment and eternal punishment built on one premise: fear keeps you faithful. Jung discovered fear does not produce faith. Fear produces compliance. Jung documented this distinction carefully across decades of clinical work. He studied thousands of religious people and found one consistent, devastating pattern. People who approached God primarily through fear never developed genuine relationship with God at all. They developed relationship with their own terror. Performing religious duties not from love or genuine spiritual connection, but from the same psychological mechanism that makes prisoners obey guards. Jung called this compulsive religiosity, spiritual behavior driven entirely by anxiety rather than genuine inner transformation. What this means for you: every spiritual decision driven by fear was never actually about God. It was about managing your own terror. So where did this terror originally come from?
Church said, fear of God is holy, sacred, spiritually necessary. The Bible commands it. Proverbs says, fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. Sermons reinforced it constantly. Fear is not a problem to overcome, it is a spiritual virtue to cultivate. So you cultivated it for decades. Jung discovered. Jung traced religious fear back to its actual psychological origin, not to God, not to scripture, but to early childhood experience. He documented this consistently. Children who experienced unpredictable authority figures, parents whose love felt conditional, communities where belonging required perfect compliance, carried that psychological template directly into their relationship with God. The terrifying God was not discovered through genuine spiritual experience. He was constructed from existing psychological wounds projected upward onto the divine. Jung called this the father complex projected onto God, not revelation, psychological transference. What this means for you: the God you feared your entire life may have looked more like your childhood wounds than like God himself. So what did this fear actually cost you across your entire lifetime? Church said, fear keeps you righteous. Without it, you would drift into sin. The terror of judgment is what maintains moral behavior. Remove the fear, remove the morality. This argument kept entire congregations compliant for centuries. Jung discovered. Jung documented what fear-based religion actually produces in human beings across a lifetime. Not moral strength, not genuine virtue, not authentic spiritual growth. Chronic anxiety, shame, spiritual exhaustion.
He found people who spent entire lifetimes inside fear-based religious systems developed what he called an infantile relationship with God, never maturing beyond the terrified child seeking to avoid punishment. Genuine moral development requires something completely different. It requires internal motivation, personal conscience, authentic values chosen freely. Fear produces compliance, never character. Jung found something else consistently devastating. Fear-based religion systematically prevents the one thing genuine spiritual growth requires: honest self-examination. Because when you are terrified of what God thinks, you cannot honestly examine what you actually think. What this means for you: decades of fear-based faith may have kept you compliant, but it may have also kept you from ever developing genuine relationship with God or yourself. So, what did Jung say genuine faith without fear actually looks like?
Church said, remove fear and faith collapses. People need the threat of consequences to remain spiritually committed. Without judgment and punishment, nobody would pursue God seriously. This argument justified centuries of fear-based preaching. Jung documented genuine spiritual transformation in hundreds of patients, and not one case involved fear as the motivating force. Every genuine transformation he documented began with something completely different: honest self-confrontation, personal encounter with the divine through dreams, crisis, or genuine inner experience, authentic relationship with God rooted in reality rather than terror. Jung called this mature religious experience, distinguished carefully from infantile fear-based compliance. Mature faith asks honest questions, sits with genuine doubt, engages God directly without institutional permission, and produces something fear never once produced in anyone Jung documented: genuine inner transformation, real compassion, authentic moral strength that does not collapse when nobody is watching. What this means for you: if your faith has always felt like performance, it may not be faith at all. It may simply be fear wearing faith's clothing. So how do you actually move from fear-based religion toward genuine faith?
Church said fear is the starting point. Accept judgment first, then grace becomes meaningful. Without understanding God's wrath, you cannot appreciate His love. This sequence kept people trapped in fear indefinitely, always starting over, never actually arriving. Jung documented a specific psychological process for moving beyond fear religion. He called it confronting the God image. Not abandoning God, but honestly examining the specific version of God installed in your psyche, where it came from, who constructed it, whether it reflects genuine divine reality or accumulated psychological wounds. This process requires 3 honest steps. First, acknowledge the fear honestly, not spiritualize it, not call it reverence, name it accurately. This is terror, and terror is not relationship. Second, trace it honestly. Ask yourself when you first felt this specific fear of God. What age, what circumstance, what authority figure introduced it? Third, distinguish carefully between the God image you were given and the God you may actually encounter through genuine, honest inner experience. What this means for you: the God image installed by fear may bear almost no resemblance to God Himself, and you will never know the difference until you examine it honestly. So what does Jung say happens when you finally do?
Church said, questioning God's nature is dangerous, spiritually reckless, the mark of weakening faith. Accept what you were taught. Trust the institution. Examination leads to doubt. Doubt leads to destruction. This warning silenced genuine inquiry for generations. Jung found the opposite consistently true. People who honestly examined their God image did not lose faith, they lost fear. And beneath the fear, something genuine was often waiting. He documented this carefully. When patients traced their terrifying God image back to its actual psychological origins and distinguished it honestly from genuine spiritual experience, something shifted fundamentally. Not into atheism, not into spiritual carelessness, into something quieter, more honest, more genuinely real. Jung called it the living God experience. Direct, personal encounter with divine reality, completely unmediated by institutional fear. Different from every religious performance they had previously called faith. What this means for you: honest examination does not destroy faith, it destroys the fear masquerading as faith. And what remains afterward is something genuinely worth keeping. So what specifically remains when the fear finally dissolves?
Church said, without fear, nothing remains. Remove judgment and punishment, and spiritual life collapses completely. Fear is not just the beginning of wisdom, it is the foundation of everything. This claim kept generations spiritually imprisoned, convinced that dismantling fear meant dismantling faith entirely. Jung documented what actually remains after fear dissolves, and his findings were consistent across decades of genuine clinical work. Genuine curiosity about God, not desperate negotiation with a judge, but honest exploration of something genuinely vast and real. Authentic moral compass, not compliance driven by punishment fear, but values genuinely chosen and internally owned. Real compassion. Jung found that fear-based religion paradoxically produced less genuine compassion than authentic faith, because fear turns attention inward toward personal salvation rather than outward toward genuine human connection. What this means for you: everything genuinely valuable in your faith does not require fear to survive. Only the performance requires fear. The genuine relationship underneath was never dependent on terror. So what did Jung ultimately conclude about fear and God's actual nature?
Church said, God is to be feared. This is not negotiable. Scripture commands it, theology confirms it. The fear of God is holy, sacred, and spiritually essential. End of discussion. Jung was careful here. He distinguished between two completely different psychological experiences that religion often conflates. Destructive fear, the terror of punishment, judgment, and eternal condemnation. This he documented as psychologically harmful, producing anxiety, shame, and spiritual paralysis. And genuine awe, the overwhelming experience of encountering something vastly greater than yourself, humbling, transformative, deeply reverent. These are not the same experience. Jung found genuine awe produced authentic spiritual growth consistently. Destructive fear produced only compliance. The original Hebrew word translated as fear of God is yirah. It means profound awe and reverence, not terror. What this means for you: you were never commanded to be terrified of God. You were invited into something far more profound. Genuine awe before something so vast it makes terror feel small. So how do you actually begin replacing fear with genuine awe?
Awe and fear are the same thing. Reverence requires terror. You cannot separate them. A God powerful enough to create everything is a God powerful enough to destroy you. That awareness should terrify you constantly. Jung documented specific practices for developing genuine awe rather than destructive fear. First, engage nature honestly. Jung found consistent evidence that genuine awe experiences occurred most frequently outside institutional religion. Mountains, oceans, vast night skies. Moments where human smallness felt genuinely humbling rather than terrifying. Second, sit with genuine mystery honestly. Stop demanding theological certainty from every spiritual question. Jung found that tolerating genuine uncertainty without immediately reaching for institutional answers produced authentic awe consistently. Third, notice genuine numinous moments, those unexpected experiences of something greater than yourself, not manufactured in church services, but arising naturally in ordinary life. Jung found these moments were available to everyone, without institutional permission, without religious performance. What this means for you? Genuine awe does not require a church building. It requires honest attention to what is already present. God was never hiding behind your terror. He was waiting beyond it. So what did Jung conclude about fear and genuine faith together?
Church said, fear and faith work together. They are inseparable. A faith without fear is a faith without accountability. Without the weight of judgment, spiritual life becomes self-indulgent and meaningless. Jung compared two groups carefully across his clinical work: people whose faith was primarily fear-driven, and people whose faith was rooted in genuine inner experience and authentic relationship with God. The differences were consistent and significant. Fear-driven faith produced chronic spiritual anxiety, rigid thinking, inability to tolerate doubt, dependence on institutional authority, moral behavior contingent on surveillance. Genuine faith produced psychological resilience, honest self-examination, tolerance for uncertainty, internal moral motivation, compassion toward others genuinely chosen rather than performed. Jung was careful not to overstate this. Both groups believed in God genuinely. Both groups were sincere. But their psychological and spiritual health were dramatically different. What this means for you? The quality of your faith is not measured by how much you fear God. It is measured by how genuinely you know yourself and how honestly you engage with something real. So why did the Church choose fear over genuine faith development?
Fear-based preaching is simply faithful preaching. We are warning people about genuine spiritual danger. This is love, not control. A doctor who warns about disease is not controlling patients, he is caring for them. Jung was genuinely fair about this. He did not conclude that religious institutions deliberately chose fear as a manipulation strategy. Most pastors and priests genuinely believed what they taught. They inherited fear-based theology the same way their congregations did. The pattern perpetuated itself not through malice, but through unexamined inheritance. Each generation received fear-based religion, internalized it as truth, passed it forward unchanged. Jung called this collective psychological inheritance, unexamined beliefs transmitted across generations as spiritual truth. The problem was not intention. The problem was nobody stopped to examine whether fear was actually producing what genuine faith requires. genuine inner transformation, authentic relationship with God, real psychological and spiritual wholeness. What this means for you. Your pastor was probably not trying to control you. He was simply passing forward what was passed forward to him. But inherited fear is still fear, regardless of how sincerely it was transmitted. So what is the final truth Jung left us about faith and fear?
Church said, fear is sacred, non-negotiable, the foundation of everything spiritual. Without it, faith has no weight, no seriousness, no genuine commitment to God. Jung arrived at one carefully documented conclusion after decades of clinical work. Fear and faith are not the same thing. They never were. Fear is a psychological response to perceived threat. Faith is a psychological orientation towards something genuinely real beyond yourself. One contracts, one expands. One isolates, one connects. One produces compliance, one produces transformation. Jung never claimed religion was worthless. He never dismissed genuine spiritual experience. He never told patients to abandon their faith communities. He told them something more precise. Examine what is actually driving your spiritual life. If it is primarily fear, that is worth understanding honestly, because genuine faith can survive that examination. What this means for you, your faith is not fragile. Your fear is not sacred. And the God waiting beyond your terror is worth the honest examination required to reach him. Jung spent his entire career proving that genuine encounter with God always begins where fear finally ends.
What Jung actually recommended. 3 specific documented practices, starting today. Practice 1. Honest examination. Sit quietly. Ask yourself one specific question. When did I first feel afraid of God? What age, what circumstance, what person introduced that fear? Write the answer honestly, without spiritual justification. This single practice begins separating genuine faith from inherited fear immediately. Practice 2. Distinguish fear from awe daily. When you feel something toward God, pause, ask honestly, is this terror of punishment or genuine reverence before something vast and real? These feel similar, they are completely different. Learning to distinguish them changes everything gradually. Practice 3. Pursue genuine numinous experience, not in performance, not in religious obligation, in nature, in honest prayer, in genuine silence, in moments where something greater than yourself arrives unexpectedly. Jung found these moments available to everyone, without institutional permission, without religious performance. This is SYC Soul, where psychology meets the questions religion was afraid to ask. If this new format resonated with you, subscribe. New truth every single week. Now tell me honestly, drop one word below, fear, awe, or free.